Hello and welcome to Lost Love Mystery, where we explore the twists and turns of love, the pain of betrayal, and the mysteries that lie hidden in the heart. It started like any other day in my life, a routine that I thought we both were comfortable with. We were planning our future together, or so I thought. I trusted her in ways I hadn't trusted anyone else before. We were building a life, a home, dreams of a future that would include nothing but the two of us. But deep down, there was a gut feeling that something wasn't right. I ignored it, brushed it off as me being paranoid, overthinking as I often did. That evening, we met at the wedding venue to finalize the last of the details for our big day. The meeting was smooth, no signs of tension. She seemed her usual self, though I couldn't shake that nagging feeling. We drove to the venue separately, which was normal because she had to leave directly for work afterward. But that night, she asked me for a favor. Her friend needed a ride home after dropping off her rental car. I agreed without hesitation, thinking nothing of it. We've known each other's friends for years. It was a simple favor, and it shouldn't have meant anything. But something about that night, something in the way she seemed to avoid my gaze when we spoke about the details, made me uneasy. When I tried to reach out to her afterward, there was no answer. I didn't think much of it at first, but as the hours passed, the concern began to grow. The silence, the lack of communication, it was unlike her. I texted her friend to ask if she had made it home safely, just to ease my mind. The response I got made my blood run cold. Sorry, I didn't see her tonight. What the hell? That was the moment the knot in my stomach tightened. I tried to tell myself it was a misunderstanding. Maybe her friend was mistaken. But deep down, I knew that this was only the beginning. It didn't take much to convince myself to check her phone records. I'd never been the kind of guy to snoop, but I needed answers. When I saw the long, secretive call to an unfamiliar number, my blood boiled. The truth hit me like a slap to the face. I confronted her, my heart pounding in my chest, demanding answers. She told me everything was fine, that she was just hanging out with her friend. No big deal. But I wasn't stupid. I knew that something was off. The inconsistencies in her story, the way she hesitated, and the lies she told, it all pointed to one thing: betrayal. When I asked her directly about the phone call, she tried to explain it away, but it was clear she was lying. I pushed harder, refusing to back down. Finally, she admitted that she had met up with someone, a coworker, to talk about work. But the lies kept coming. It was nothing. Just a quick conversation. But why couldn't she just tell me the truth? Why hide it? I asked to see the text conversation, to prove there was nothing more to it. She refused. And in that moment, I knew there was something more. The walls I had built around us, around our trust, were crumbling. The anger began to rise within me. This wasn't just a simple mistake or a lapse in judgment. This was betrayal. I demanded to see the texts, knowing deep down that they would confirm my worst fears. When she finally showed me, the words stung more than anything I had ever imagined. They were sexual. They were flirtatious. They were filled with intimacy that should have been mine to share. She wasn't just talking to him. She was planning something with him. The messages weren't about work or some innocent conversation. They were about something deeper, something physical. The way she spoke to him, the way she made it clear that she was already emotionally involved, it shattered me. This wasn't just an affair. This was her choosing him over me. I was the one who had supported her, the one who had been there through everything. And this was how she repaid me. I kept trying to rationalize it, to figure out what had gone wrong. But the truth was too harsh to swallow. She had already given a piece of herself to someone else. And it wasn't just an emotional betrayal. No, it was physical. The way she spoke about him, the way she described their secret moments, it was clear that they had crossed a line. I tried to understand her perspective. She claimed that I wasn't paying attention to her, that I wasn't there for her when she needed me. But that didn't excuse her actions. I had been working tirelessly to provide for us, to ensure our future, to give her the life she wanted. And yet, she had found comfort in someone else, someone who wasn't me. As I tried to piece together the timeline, the truth became undeniable. She had been seeing him for weeks, talking to him constantly, hiding it all from me. I had thought we were building a future, but instead, I was just another part of her past. She didn't care about what we had. She cared only about what he could give her. I confronted her with everything I knew. She tried to deflect, tried to blame me for not being there enough. But that didn't change what had happened. The words she had said to him, the flirtation, the promises, it was all a betrayal of the highest degree. And in that moment, I realized something. She was never truly mine to begin with. The physical aspect of her betrayal stung the hardest. It wasn't just an emotional affair. It was a violation of our intimacy, the one thing that was supposed to be sacred between us. She had shared herself with him in a way that should have been mine. That feeling of being replaced, of being invisible to her, cut deeper than I could have ever imagined. When she finally admitted to me the full extent of her betrayal, everything around me seemed to shatter. The silence between us was suffocating, and I could feel my blood boiling, but I couldn't find the words to fully express the rage that consumed me. The realization that the woman I had trusted with everything, the woman I had loved with every fiber of my being, had chosen someone else was a dagger to my heart. But more than that, it was a betrayal of my manhood. I had always been the one to protect her, to provide for her, to be the rock in her life. Yet here I was, the fool, standing before her while she calmly confessed to a physical and emotional affair. The anger I felt wasn't just because she had slept with him or had romantic exchanges with him. It was because she had stolen from me in a way I couldn't easily forgive. Our intimacy had been reduced to nothing more than a game to her. I had given her the best of me, and she had taken it for granted. As she explained, her voice trembling, I couldn't help but notice how detached she seemed. Was she even remorseful for what she had done? Or was this just another attempt to justify her actions, to make me feel like the villain in this story? It felt like she was doing what so many people do when they've been caught in a lie. They try to shift the blame, to convince the other person that it was their fault. She told me that she had been feeling neglected, that I hadn't been paying attention to her needs, that I hadn't been emotionally available enough. But what did she expect? I was doing everything in my power to build a future for us, to ensure that we had everything we needed. What she had failed to see was that I had been sacrificing my own emotional needs, my own desires, to give her the life she claimed to want. And now she had repaid me with a betrayal so deep that I could barely comprehend it. The woman I had loved, the one who I had dreamed of a future with, had given herself to another man. And not just emotionally, but physically as well. I could feel my stomach twist in disgust as I imagined the intimacy they shared, the way she had touched him, kissed him, the same way she had once done with me. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to throw every ounce of anger I felt in her face. But instead, I stood there, my fists clenched, my jaw tight, trying to maintain control. I had to. I had to show her that I was stronger than this. But inside, I felt like I was crumbling. The woman I had trusted had taken everything from me. She had robbed me of my dignity, of my self-respect, and of my faith in love itself. The worst part was the doubt that began to eat away at me. If she could betray me so easily, what else had she lied about? Had I ever really known her at all? Had every touch, every kiss, every whispered "I love you" been a lie? It felt like my world had been built on a foundation of lies, and now that foundation was crumbling beneath me. My anger wasn't just directed at her. It was directed at myself for ever allowing myself to trust her in the first place. I wanted to walk away, to leave her and never look back. But the thought of losing everything we had, every moment, every memory, every dream, was unbearable. And so I stayed, frozen in the moment, torn between my pride, my anger, and my heart, which was still desperately clinging to the hope that the woman I once knew was still somewhere deep inside her. After she confessed, there was an eerie silence between us. It was as though time had stopped, and all that was left was this suffocating feeling of betrayal. My mind raced, my emotions twisted in every direction. I could feel the anger rising again, but I knew I had to control it. I wasn't going to allow her to see how much she had broken me. Instead, I chose to take control in a way I never had before. The first thing I did was take a step back. I needed space, needed to process everything that had just been laid bare before me. I needed to stop being the weak man who had been so blindly in love with her that I couldn't see her lies. No longer. I couldn't afford to be that man anymore. I had to become the alpha, someone strong, someone who could take charge of the situation. But as much as I tried to keep my composure, my mind kept replaying everything she had done. The intimacy they shared, the passion that should have been mine, was now his. I had never felt so betrayed, so disrespected in my life. As days passed, I started to withdraw from her. I became cold, distant, almost robotic in my interactions with her. I didn't care if she cried, if she apologized. It didn't matter anymore. She had already crossed the line, and no amount of regret could undo what she had done. But there was something else at play here. She had taken control of the situation for so long, and now it was my turn. The power had shifted, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into forgiving her. There were moments when I saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes, when she tried to reach out to me, but I pushed her away. I wasn't going to allow myself to be a doormat anymore. She had made her choice, and now I had to make mine. I began to focus on myself, on my own healing. The man I had been destroyed by her betrayal, but I was determined to rebuild myself, stronger, more confident, and more aware of my worth. I couldn't allow her to have the power over me that she once had. She had taken enough from me. I wasn't going to let her destroy me any further. And so, I started to take control, to regain my sense of self. But no matter how hard I tried, the image of her with him, the way she had given herself to him so easily, kept haunting me. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see them together, and the jealousy, the anger, and the rage would consume me again. She had stolen something from me that I could never get back, something so sacred, so personal, that no amount of control could replace it. She had stolen my trust, my heart, and my respect. And no matter how much I tried to regain control of the situation, there would always be a part of me that was broken because of what she had done. As time passed, the fallout of her betrayal continued to reverberate through my life. We were supposed to be building something together, a future, a partnership. Instead, I found myself drowning in the weight of her lies and deceit. The more I tried to move on, the more I was reminded of what she had done to me. Every conversation felt like a painful reminder of the trust that had been shattered. Every touch she gave me seemed empty, as though it was just a hollow gesture, a mere reflection of the affection she had once shown me. We tried to go through the motions of a normal relationship, but it felt forced, unnatural. The connection we once shared was gone, replaced by a wall of resentment and bitterness. I couldn't even look at her the same way anymore. Her touch didn't feel the same. Her words felt hollow. Everything she had once done for me now seemed meaningless. It was as if she had stripped away all of the love I had for her, leaving me with nothing but anger and disappointment. But as much as I hated her for what she had done, there was still a part of me that longed for the woman she used to be. The woman who had once made me feel like I was the only one who mattered. I couldn't understand how she could have so easily thrown that all away. Was I not enough for her? Did I not satisfy her in every way? These questions tortured me daily, and the more I asked, the more I realized that the answers didn't matter. She had made her choice, and nothing would change that. The worst part was the realization that I would never truly trust her again. How could I? How could I ever believe anything she said, knowing that she had deceived me so completely? She had broken the most fundamental part of our relationship, the trust that held everything together. Without that trust, we were nothing. The fallout was not just between the two of us. It affected everyone around us, the friends, the family, everyone who had once believed in our love. And now, all of it lay in ruins. I had been the fool, the one who had believed in the fairy tale. But the reality was far darker than I could have ever imagined. And now, I was left to pick up the pieces of my shattered heart, trying to find a way forward in a world where love no longer felt safe. The days turned into weeks, and the rage I had felt initially began to burn even hotter. It wasn't just the betrayal that gnawed at me. It was the realization that I had let this happen. I had been so blinded by love, so desperate to believe in the best in her, that I had ignored the warning signs. Now, she had crossed the line, and there would be no going back. I could see it in her eyes. She wanted me to forgive her. She wanted me to take her back and pretend like nothing had happened. She thought that if she apologized enough, if she groveled enough, I would fall back into the trap of her lies. But she was wrong. I wasn't the same man she had married. That man was dead, and in his place stood someone far stronger, far more resolute. The anger I felt had given birth to a new version of me, the version that would no longer tolerate betrayal, that would no longer allow anyone to play with my emotions like a puppet. As much as she begged, as much as she tried to pull at my heartstrings, I knew that the damage was irreparable. There was no coming back from what she had done. The physical and emotional intimacy she had shared with another man had stripped me of any illusion that we could ever rebuild what we once had. The trust had been shattered, and once that was gone, everything else fell apart. There was no forgiveness for her actions. No more second chances. She had broken me, and now it was time to break free from her. I couldn't keep living this lie. Every day felt like a prison, every moment a reminder of how far she had gone to deceive me. I had spent too many years building something with her, and she had burned it to the ground. The thought of staying with her, of continuing to pretend like I didn't know the truth, made my skin crawl. She didn't deserve me, and I certainly didn't deserve to live in her shadow. The decision was made. It was time to take control of my life once and for all. I wasn't going to beg for her love, or try to fix something that was never meant to be fixed. I had already given her everything I had, and she had destroyed it. No more. It was time to take the reins and walk away from the woman who had betrayed me. I called her into the living room, where the final confrontation would take place. Her face was pale, her eyes filled with hope, but I could see the fear in them too. She knew what was coming. She had to. She knew that I was no longer the man who would tolerate her lies. I stood tall, my posture straight, my jaw clenched. I looked at her, not with love or pity, but with the cold indifference that came with knowing my worth. "I'm done," I said, my voice steady, unwavering. "This marriage is over. You can pack your things and go. I don't want you here anymore." Her face twisted in disbelief, and for the first time, I saw a hint of fear in her eyes. She wasn't the one in control anymore. She had no power over me. I was no longer the man who had been manipulated by her charms. I was the man who was taking back his life. She started to protest, to beg, but I cut her off. "You had your chance. You chose him. Now you can live with that decision. But you won't have me anymore. Not now, not ever." The words were final. There was no going back. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was something I had been building to for weeks, months even. The anger, the heartbreak, the realization that I had been living a lie. All of it had led to this moment. And in that moment, I took control. I watched her pack her things, but I didn't feel anything. No guilt, no regret, only relief. I had freed myself from her betrayal, and with each item she took from the house, I felt a little lighter, a little more myself again. As she left, I stood at the door, watching her walk away. There was no sense of victory in it, no satisfaction. It wasn't about winning or losing. It was about reclaiming my power, reclaiming my life, and refusing to let anyone, especially her, take that from me again. I had been broken, but now I was whole again, stronger, more focused, and she had no place in my future. With her gone, the house felt empty, but in a way, it was also peaceful. The constant tension, the lies, the betrayal, all of it was gone. I didn't feel sadness or regret. I didn't feel anger anymore either. What I felt was freedom. The freedom to rebuild, to reclaim the life that I had almost lost to her lies. For the first time in years, I was able to breathe without the weight of her betrayal hanging over me. I knew that I had made the right decision, but more importantly, I had taken back control of my life. I was no longer the man who had let her walk all over me, who had begged for her affection. I was the man who stood tall, who was strong, and who refused to let anyone dictate the terms of his life again. I threw myself into my work, into improving myself. I hit the gym harder than ever before, pushing my body to new limits. I started eating better, taking care of myself in ways I hadn't in years. I focused on my career, building connections, working on projects that were meaningful to me. I began to surround myself with people who respected me, who valued me for who I was, not who they thought I should be. And in time, I realized something. My worth was never tied to her. My worth had always been within me. I had allowed myself to be deceived, to be broken by her betrayal, but now I was stronger. I was an alpha, and I knew it. I had reclaimed my power, my dignity, and my respect. I wasn't going to let anyone take that from me again. As for her, I didn't care what happened to her. She had made her choices, and now she had to live with them. I had no more time to waste on someone who didn't value me, who didn't respect me. I had a future ahead of me, and I was determined to make it the best one possible. There was no room for her in it. I was free, and that was all that mattered.